Hi, hello. We're here with Rod Class, and we're going to do some Q&A here and there on administrative process and what Rod does and the purpose of the webinars that he's going to be giving and what you're going to be learning. And one question that I would like to ask Rod is, just in regular terms, tell us about how administrative process can help the average person in any situation at all, anything to do with government, court system, and how it always works. How does that all fit together?
Okay, you got to remember something here. It's like we was talking here earlier. When you see that police officer out on the street, you look at him as in a judicial capacity or as a police officer, but you got to remember something. That police officer works under an administrative agency. He works under the governor, under the mayor's side of this thing. All right. Mayor is an executive branch. Same thing with sheriff deputy. Sheriff is an executive branch. State Highway Patrol is an executive branch. So you have an executive branch that's stopping you. The executive branch is administrative. So when you start looking at what a motor vehicle is, that comes under the Department of Transportation. But what a lot of people are aware of, Sue, is under that Title 23 CFR, under Section 1327. All right. Congress allowed AAMVA, which is American Association for Motor Vehicles Administration. You have an administration making regulations on driving.
So basically, if I'm driving down the road and here's these red lights behind me, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, what law did I break? What's going to happen to me now?
Yeah.
Basically, what I'm looking at is a man who's been hired by the police chief, the police department. I'm looking at an administrative agency coming after me, or for it that's going to call it a crime, okay? Yeah. That will eventually call it a crime because I will get citation and all of this stuff. But basically, what I'm looking at is someone who is publicly funded, but doesn't answer to me. Isn't answering to me. They have another power that they have to answer to, and that is the sheriff's department. Correct? Am I correct? The mayor, depending on what jurisdiction, if it's county or city or state.
Yeah, whether it's the governor, whether it's the mayor, whether it's the sheriff, but ultimately it goes back to the Department of Transportation, and it goes back into a private administration that is legislating regulations on driving. And see, that's what people don't understand. This is not a judicial issue. This is an administrative. This class is to teach you the difference between administrative avenues and the kangaroo court system that we're walking into. So when you're dealing with an administrative officer, the first thing we do is go back and show administrative procedural violations of federal funding regulations, of federal laws being violated because they're not doing their job right.
And basically, what we're talking about here, let's get into a little bit of detail here. They just, let's say with just this traffic ticket, they aren't, just by pulling you over, they're not following their own rules and procedures, correct?
Correct.
Because number one, they have probable cause you have not committed a crime yet. You have not done anything like that they can pull you over for. So these people are being paid by the public. They have a hierarchy they have to answer to. So this guy that's coming and pulling me over is not holding court there, even though he may want to search my car. He may want to, he'll ask me for my identification. And if I don't give it to him, he's going to put me in jail. He's going to take me to the jail, the nearest jail, and tow my car. So he's going to make it very difficult for me, in other words. Now, is this administrative, what he's doing?
No, what he's doing is he's relying on the judicial court He was relying on the prosecutor and the judge and the public defender to cover up his misconduct. This is what I have found out by going through the administrative side. Because once we go through the administrative side, the judicial side don't play no more. And what happens here is their own judicial side throws them under the bus by saying they don't work for us because we're bringing in the federal funding, we're showing their violation. And what the state is doing is they're relieving themselves of all liability. This is where we have went wrong throughout all these years by allowing them to drag us into these judicial courts instead of us taking them into an administrative. Because what we're doing is I teach you how to be a prosecutor. There's a big difference between being a prosecutor and being a defendant. Being a prosecutor, you're bringing the charges, you're bringing the claims of misconduct, because now you want this police officer to sit down and explain to the administrative court how he was sitting in his car with his windows wound up, sitting alongside the road, and here you passed him about 35 miles an hour, and he is able to whiff marijuana out of your car.
Yeah, they will make up all kinds of stories. Yes.
I pulled you over because I smelled marijuana. Well, all right. Tell me what kind of chewing gum I got in my pocket. If you can smell marijuana, then you can smell what bubble gum I have.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing. So many people, these cops are getting out of control. They're pulling people over for nothing, and actually, if you don't object, they're searching your car. Just to, I know one county in my state where if you go over the white line just by touching it, they'll pull you over because they suspect that you're driving drunk, which is not true.
No.
It happens every day. People miss the white line every day.
Well, see, the thing of it is, what you people don't realize, another reason why we're going after them administratively is that federal funding is being embezzled from the administration by their judicial system. That 40% of that Highway Safety Act goes back to the judicial system, not to the administrative. It's being embezzled. That's why they drag you into the wrong court system.
Okay, when you call them on that, and when you call them on all of these things administratively, say I have this ticket in my hand, what is the first thing that I want to do?
First thing you want to do is, one, understand what you're involved in. Go back and read the ticket. What does it say? Don't see how fast you can read it. Take your time and read it slowly. That's like when I got pulled over for the blue light in my Jeep. It had 3 magic words: manufactured original equipment. 3 words: manufacture original equipment. I went down, first thing I did is I went down to the local dealer and says, hey, all these cop cars that is ordered through your dealership, do they come through here with the red lights and blue lights on them? He says, no, they have their own private contractor. Whoops. That's no longer original manufactured equipment. Read the laws. Second thing you want to do is take your time, understand what their rules are, understand what their job is. Go back and read the statutes on this. File a claim into the administrative court. Find it. File a complaint into the mayor. File a complaint into the police chief. File a complaint into the city law director. Notify the governor. Notify the attorney general. Why? Federal funding is involved in this now. Because that cop pulled you over, federal funding is involved. Now, a lot of people don't realize under the Highway Safety Act, that's one thing. That bulletproof vest that cop has is federal funding. Those camera, that radar, federal funding. So this is not a state issue. This now becomes an administrative issue under a federal funding program issue, which the judicial courts don't want to address because they're making money off this. This is part of the thing for the seminar for teaching, because we're going to get into it here in just a minute about the case we got going in Ohio and how we went after judges and some attorneys and the value of this. But just here in North Carolina, by me going after the police department administratively, I got the administration to admit they don't work here. They're not part of the system. I went after the court system up in Mecklenburg. Administrative court said they don't work for us. So I even got it down to where even the court system isn't part of the state system. Why? Federal funding. Ladies and gentlemen, we found the tort claim court for court of claims. Well, we now can go bring a court of claim, bring a tort against them. Once that state says they don't work for us, the state waived their immunity, and they now can be sued in their private capacity. Are we trying to sidestep the law? No. Are we trying to overthrow the law? No. That's not what I'm teaching. I'm teaching accountability. We're teaching them to do their job right. Because one man can change the system. Because here in North Carolina, they've changed the firearm signs to no concealed carry pistols. Took the word firearm out. All through the state of North Carolina. And other states are doing the same thing. I just sit back and showed Sue. They've changed my charges from firearm to weapon. Because we made the issue. Ladies and gentlemen, doing the administrative side, you're a prosecutor. Is there a risk? Yes, there is. Upsetting these people? That's a possibility. But the point being of it is, you're being upset. You're being taken advantage of. In order to change it, we have to change our strategy, and administration is the way to go do this. Go ahead, Sue.
Well, what they have, a lot of people will say, well, the system is just broken. It's twisted. It's wrong. Well, I can see that where people understand that to a point because of what they've been through, but it's not. If you read the actual laws and you read, it all makes sense. Their job descriptions, it all makes sense. The problem is they're not following their own rules. They're not following the laws that they swear to uphold. Correct? They're not following what's already in there that is correct, that you would expect them to follow.
Exactly, because they have their code of ethics they're supposed to follow. They have their judicial code of ethics. Judge is supposed to be unbiased, unprejudiced. He's supposed to be independent. He's supposed to be impartial. He's supposed to sit down and no matter whether you're poor, rich, black, white, religion, he is supposed to be a neutral position. And you can walk in and show every time that they're biased and prejudiced and they're siding with the government on everything. Why? Federal funding. Okay, you got the rules of court, rules of evidence. It's a big thing. You can go back and show where they violate rules of evidence on a day-to-day basis. But if you don't know this, then you're getting hammered. And this is why you have to go back in administratively. They won't allow you to do this judicially, and I'll tell you why. Because when you walk into a judicial court, that prosecutor asks a question to the police officer. You cannot ask a question other than to redirect what she already asked. You can't bring up a new question. They won't allow you.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So you're stuck with what their pre-programmed questioning is, and there's no way to get around it. They're not going to allow you to subpoena that officer in for you to question him, to have your questions answered. So the only way to get your questions answered is to do an administrative claim and bring them in administratively. And that's what I teach. And ladies and gentlemen, it isn't this hard to learn how to be a prosecutor and how to go back after these people, because you can show where they breached their oath. You show where they breached their rules of conduct or the rules of ethics. You can show where they violated their job description. You know, their language, their rules, their congressional intent. It is not that hard to come back and show. Once you do one case and understand what you did in that one case, it's repetition after that on how to do it. Now, to give you an example, here in Ohio, I'm working with a couple up there. Okay?
This is the foreclosure case.
Foreclosure case.
Okay.
We had 2 attorneys that were disbarred for following the rules. Okay? They followed the rules and they got disbarred. So what we did is we brought a complaint. What we did here on the administrative side is this. I went to...
Can you stop for just a second and explain what these attorneys had to do with this case and why you are pointing out the fact that they got disbarred and they shouldn't have? Because most people hate attorneys. Most people think, okay, I'm sure they should have gotten disbarred. Why is there contention here on your end of it?
Okay, because the paperwork that I, back in 2013, helped this couple in Ohio file, we went back and we exposed to bankruptcy. Okay. We went back in under Title 12, 95, 95A, 95B. We showed that the bankruptcy, we showed that all mortgages was based under the bankruptcy, was all based under the Trading with the Enemy Act. Okay, we went back and showed Title 12, 411. Whenever we pushed this side, these attorneys really didn't have no other avenue because they liked what we did. They tried to come in and defend it. They were threatened with disbarment if they proceeded to expose the corruption, and that one did, he got disbarred. The other gentleman was a criminal attorney. He came back in and he showed the criminal actions of the county sheriff, the state highway patrol. He showed the criminal action of the prosecutor and the court bankers. Well, the judge realized what he was doing, and the judge sat down and says, I'm going to pass on this. We're not going to get involved in this. So that judge stepped off the bench on this thing. He went before another judge, and another judge says, I'll have your bar license for exposing this. And that's exactly what happened when we get his bar license pulled. Because he followed the rules under professional rules of ethics for the lawyers. Now, these were two rare attorneys. It's like what I'm running into up here in D.C., this Jenner and Block law firm. It shocks me on what they've done. And I know if these guys have really come in and they've backed me up, they showed the violations of the court system in the prosecution. And that's what these two attorneys did. So did they deserve to get disbarred? No. They got disbarred because they was getting ready to bring federal charges against the whole system. So because they was getting ready to bring federal charges, the judge got him disbarred so he could not bring federal charges because he proved them. He laid it out. So they had to get rid of him to keep him from bringing federal charges.
Wow. I've heard people, disappear.
Yeah.
And never to return on this earth for trying to do this. That's a brave thing for an attorney to do, especially someone who's sworn to be an officer of the court. So now we have two attorneys that are actually good guys.
Yes. And
you're seeing that through this process that you're going through of keeping everyone accountable to their job descriptions and the rules.
Right.
You are finding all of these things out now.
Yes. It's starting to come out. Well, what has happened here, when we started this administrative process after these attorneys got disbarred, the first thing we did is we notified the Bar Association. We had three of them. We had Ohio Bar Association, Cincinnati Bar Association, and Columbus Bar Association. We went back and notified that all these other 8 attorneys were in violation of their bar professional accountability. They violated 8.4, which was misconduct. And the other 2 attorneys who was upholding the rules got disbarred instead. Now we also, but remember, in order for an attorney to be disbarred, it has to be done by the Supreme Court. So we notified the Supreme Court judge of misconduct of these other 11 attorneys.
Okay. So how are you doing this? Are you writing letters? Are you filling out forms? How is it that you're doing all of this so well?
Okay, what we're doing, we're going back in and we're filing out a federal tort claim under that standard form 95.
Okay, the SF 95. Okay.
We're laying it out, and we're showing how they breached their duties on how they were supposed to operate. We filed 4 complaints in. One dealt with how they violated their oath of office on this thing. Okay? One went back and showed on how they violated their misconduct of their own rules and procedures. We went back and showed where they violated federal banking regulations on this. Okay?
It's a layer, one layer upon layer, isn't it?
Then we went back in and we showed where they violated the federal funding side of the bailout, because the bailout paid off all the loans in 2008. So because they violated the bailout, this violates antitrust laws.
Amazing.
So we went back and we nailed them on these 4 things for the attorneys and the judges. Okay, now we brought in the sheriff department and the state highway patrol. We did the same thing to them. We went for an impeachment. They took an oath that they were supposed to uphold, defend, protect. They didn't do it. We went back and showed how they breached their job on this side of the fence. We went back and showed that they aided in abetting in federal funding fraud, how they aided in abetting in the fact of embezzling federal bailout money. Now we went to the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and they knew a state senator. So we went into the state senator and asked for impeachment for the judge, the prosecutors that was involved in this, the law enforcement officers that was involved in this, and to have a hearing on the attorneys that was involved in on this. That was the state level. Now, we also went back in and we found the administrative court in Ohio, 2 of them. So
really?
We found
for just administrative claims?
Yes.
So is there one in every state?
Yes, there's one in every single state. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you're not aware of. This is
yes.
that administrative offices, administrative court claims, that does tort claims against these people, and they're waiting for us. The party went down to the court of claims in Columbus, went in and talked to them. These people were so busy playing tic-tac-toe that when they come in, they got disrupted on their tic-tac-toe because they didn't have any customers come in. These court of claims are sitting empty on a lot of them.
Nobody's using them. Nobody's using them.
The officers in there sit down and told him, go bring an administrative claim. If you bring an administrative claim, then we can hold them accountable. That's what we're for. And ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what happened up here in Raleigh, is that these administrative courts are for us to bring them in. Now, granted, it wasn't a court of claims. It was just an administrative court. The claims court is waiting for us to come in to bring charges against them. It's waiting for us to come back in and bring a claim. Because once we show administrative procedural violations, we show constitutional violations, we show job description violations, we go back and show where they violated antitrust laws. This is the only place where we can come in and do it administratively. This is what we teach. This is why this course is significant. It's different than any other course that you're ever going to come across.
It's a different way of thinking too, because we're so used to saying, okay, this police officer did me wrong. Somebody needs to do something about it.
Yeah.
Well, that somebody is me.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one that pays their salary. I'm the one where the funding comes from. Therefore, I am the highest authority. So who else is it going to come from?
Well, see, that's it, Sue. Everybody's looking for somebody else.
Right.
To fix the problem. And because we have not been taught administrative. We've only been taught judicial. We've been taught maritime. We have been taught admiralty.
Well, we've been taught to be defendants.
Yes, that's the whole thing here. We're being taught to be defendants. Nobody's teaching to be a plaintiff. And what has come out of this in this issue in Ohio is people are starting to come forward now to this gentleman and his wife and sit down saying, we've sat in these meetings and we knew months ahead of time they was planning this out on you, what they was planning to do to you. All right. The Supreme Court side of this thing, the claims court made the comment is that, number one, they breached their oath of office. By going against the banking regulations, they breached antitrust laws.
So you're finding out that people are coming forward to say that that the system, the judges, the court system, the banks were all colluding.
Yes.
To run this guy out of town, to take his land, and they were all working together in unison.
Yes.
And you're finding this out now just by the process that you used to hold them accountable by their own rules is bringing all of this out now.
Yes, it is, because what we did, Sue, this thing isn't more than 2 weeks old, and all this stuff's starting to come out now because these people have been served and they're starting to talk among each other. And the bystanders in this are coming back in and they're telling a couple, my God, so we knew about this, but we didn't realize it was this corrupt. And you do have a leg to stand on because this was coercion between these other agencies and these other departments in order to come at you. It had nothing to do with law.
Well, now you even have more charges because they took their livestock. Is that correct? They killed them?
Yep.
And they took their belongings, their personal belongings. They took a vehicle or two.
They took several different vehicles. They took farm equipment. They came back and they put liens on 2 properties that had nothing to do with any of the loans, just to sit down to show these people how bad they can railroad them.
To punish them for standing up to them.
Yeah.
But now, from a safe distance, you're actually able to go in administratively by not putting yourself into that same hornet's nest that they're in. You're going out to the rules that they're supposed to go by, their bosses, the statutes, the law, and holding them accountable now to the public by going to all these publicly funded officials and asking questions.
Exactly right. Because see, what has happened here up to this point, they were pretty much left alone. But the moment we started this process, people are starting to come forward and telling them what's going on as witnesses that can later be pulled into an administrative court that could come back in and testify. But unless you do an administrative side, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have a leg to stand on.
Right. You have to speak up, don't you? You can't just sit back and go, oh, the system is railroading me. What do I do now? Oh, I'll hire an attorney and I'll fight it. Well, okay, but you can only expect what it is that you're asking for. You're asking for another bar member to come in and work for you against other bar members.
The thing of it is, what you have here is that you've got a bar member that's got this to his throat by the judge.
That's true. Yeah.
And that's where the problem is. They're not willing to slit their own throat.
Well, no, they'll lose their livelihood. They can get disbarred for that because, their ethics rules say that they have to work for the client. But then their oath says they have to be an officer of the court.
That's exactly right. And see, that's where the conflict comes
in. And these guys are supposed to be smart. So, to me, I would question that. I guess maybe that's why I'm not an attorney. I would question that. Why do I have to swear an oath to my client, but yet I have to swear a higher oath to you, to the system?
The problem of it is, when you hire an attorney, it's a one signature contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is no obligation to you. It's a one signature contract.
They tell you and you accept or you go down, either one. Yeah. Yeah.
And see, this is part of the administrative side. is it a little rough to learn? It is at the beginning. Once you start understanding it, it becomes, this wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And you start finding it becomes fun, because when you start playing with these people and start hammering them in administratively, and we can start going after them under a tort claim.
Well, you can almost predict what they do.
Yes.
You know, like in your gun case now, we all know it so well that you'll put something out and we can all sit back and just laugh because we know what they're going to do in response.
Well, see, this is it. When you're doing the administrative side on this, Stu, you know ahead of time of what they're going to do because they have a routine pattern.
Yeah, and they've only got one way to go, and that's out the nearest door, right? and we watch them do it. Exactly.
So the education level in this, it's too hard to teach on AIB radio. This is why we are doing and offering a webinar.
Yeah, with video and documents and screen sharing and the whole bit. Yeah.
Where you get the information to where you can download it. We can show you what we're talking about, because now it comes into show and tell.
Well, yeah, we can actually go to a website and show the administrative in some state, you know, and actually take you to that website so that you know what to look for, to give you those tools so that you'll feel like, okay, I can do this.
Yes.
And you don't have to hire an attorney. You don't have to pay a retainer. You don't have to be, you know, in debt for the rest of your life because you're trying to defend yourself. It's free. It's actually free to be a plaintiff.
Yes. Well, the thing of it is, when you hire an attorney, you're hiring him to sell you out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
make a deal. Yeah, to make a deal.
All right. The education that you give here, and I take retainers for what I do, but I walk into court with you. I teach you, I prep you whenever we walk into court, what to say, how to say it. We teach you how to do the paperwork on this stuff. Oh, and no lawyer will ever sit down and teach you any of this.
No.
No. And this is where the difference comes in with what this webinar is all about. It's all about educating you, and you get out of it what you put in it.
Yeah, and nobody is going to protect you more than you will protect yourself.
That's exactly right, because when you start going after them, these people, they get nervous. And the reason why they're nervous is they are upset because they got caught. Because you came in and you hammered them. Well, wait a minute. The rule sits here and says, this rule sits here and says, oh, but you didn't file your paperwork in time. Your rule says you had to have paperwork within 31 days or 14 days or 21 days. Like, the process of it is we take them straight into the administrative court. We bring a claim against them.
And now they're on the defense.
Yes.
They've dropped that whole thing against you because they're like, oh my gosh, now I have to defend myself.
Exactly right.
Turn the tables just like that.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, stop and think here. And Sue and I was talking about this. You will never see a judge in a police car behind you.
That's true.
You will never see a prosecutor in a police car behind you pull you over. It's never a judicial officer that's pulling you over. It's always an administrative officer. Therefore, this makes this an administrative issue. That's why we pointed out they are part of the executive branch.
Yeah, they're telling you you're committing a crime, but you're not. It's not a crime. This is what they're taught to tell you. It's a criminal action. Yeah.
It's what you've been taught to believe.
Yeah, and it's really not. It's an administrative issue. It's corporate policy.
Yeah.
And just like any other corporation like Walmart, if you had bad service there or somebody was rude to you, you have every right to go to the, or something was defective, let's say, let's not even talk about people, but you have every right to go to whoever employs that person and say, what's the deal? You know, did this person follow the rules? Same thing.
Well, yeah, because if you got a defective item from Walmart, you don't take it to court. You go back to Walmart. They got a policy. This is an administrative policy. And that's what we're missing. That's what we're not understanding. Everything we're doing is an administrative policy. So we have to address it administratively because we're not part of that system. We only got drugged in through deception of them taking our property and owning it and then making us liable under that property for the automobile, for the MSO. The state holds it. The county holds the property to your state. Okay, but it's all administrative. You will never see an administrative hearing on any of this stuff, and that's where we're missing the boat. That's why this administrative course is so vital. It's so important. It's a new way of looking at things, and it's a means of getting you out of a rut by learning.
And it's teaching the system to hold itself accountable to its own rules because the people are not putting up with their crap anymore.
Exactly right. And that's what it's all about. Accountability. Go back and do accountability. Yeah, realize you've had bad problems with your judicial side, and that is well taken because you have an administration taking you into a judicial issue. So when you try to bring up some of this, they're going to tell you it's frivolous, unintelligible, because it is the wrong branch of government. It's wrong.
And once you learn the different facets and who answers to who, that's your biggest hurdle right there, is learning who answers to who. But ultimately, just remember, they all answer to us.
Exactly.
Every single one of them.
All the federal funding comes from us. All their revenue comes from us. So we are ultimately the one in charge. And under the federal grant setup here, the only ones that can make a complaint is the people. We're the only ones that can make a complaint about the misuse of federal funding. They can't. We can.
Yeah, so there's no reason to sit back and go, I don't know what to do. You know, the system is becoming like Nazi Germany. Well, of course it is, because its employers are not holding these people accountable and then booting them out. Actually, they'll walk out.
Yeah.
They will actually walk out. They will run out the nearest door once they realize that the people that are paying their salary know exactly what they've been doing, and now they're going to be holding them accountable for it.
Well, those that was in my DC case, those who watched whenever AJ, the judge, pretty much sat there and adjourned and everybody walked out. When I took over my case, the judge is the first one out the door and everybody else was left standing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was nailing them on procedural violations. I was nailing them on rule violations. I was nailing them on ethics violations. I was nailing them on congressional statute violations.
Well, you admitted all of that into evidence. Yes. In your case. The Constitution, the rules of evidence, the rules of court. You admitted all of that as evidence, so it was on the public record, so nobody could say, wait a minute, I don't know what you're talking about here.
And that's exactly what the amicus attorneys went back and pointed out in the appeals court. Mr. Klass brought all this stuff up in the appeals court.
Yeah, so they had no excuse now for not looking at it. They had no excuse for not paying attention to it, and they had no excuse for saying, I didn't know.
No, but see, the other thing of this, the DC Circuit Court is a full-time administrative court when it's not operating under the appeal side for the district court.
And you found that out through research, right?
Yes. But see, I also, part of my paperwork, I demanded an administrative hearing. And I was denied. Well, now I'm in the administrative court, and this paperwork shows I demanded an administrative hearing is now before this court.
Good thing. Good deal.
This is the court they're supposed to have been in front of to start with.
Well, I hope this has given you guys more information on the beauty of administrative process. It's a peaceful way. It's a truthful way. And it's self-enforcing. And you can sit back and watch these guys. And like I said, Rod and I, in the group that we work with, we have laughed over some of these cases because we know what they're going to do now. Rod will say, here's what I filed, and I'll look at it, and I'll just start laughing because I know what they're going to do. I know why they're going to do it. and it can actually become fun, like anything else that you know well. So not only can you empower yourself, you can empower your family. It's not hard to teach your family and friends. You can help other people, and it doesn't cost you anything but some time and a little effort and postage, maybe a trip or two to the court after you know what you're doing. So stay tuned. We're going to have more of these little talks here to explain a little bit more, because we know that it's a hard concept to grasp at first, becoming a plaintiff, creating an empowered person out of someone who's been beaten down by the court system. So we want you to know that you can win every single time. You can't lose with administrative remedy. I promise you, you can't. It's a guarantee that you will not, as long as you follow this process and you understand their rules better than they do. God knows most of us do understand their rules better than they do. So we'll be back with more of these. And thanks, Rod, for being with us.
Okay.
Anything else you want to say before we go?
And what Sue said was right. You have to understand their rules. You can't sidestep it. You can't shortcut it. The moment you do, you shortcut yourself on this thing. So understand with what we're trying to teach. We'll walk you through this thing. And as long as you put your effort into it, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have them scurrying like rats jumping a ship. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Good night.